To be here with you today. Our topic today is pause, to just take a minute to connect and reflect and maybe redirect in our lives. So we get to talk about the value of that. But before we get started, let's just take a couple minutes to get settled in and present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And let's imagine sparkling, clean, crisp oxygen just flowing into your lungs and into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, and bringing vital life force and health. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine sparkling, brilliant light coursing into the electrons and molecules and electrifying and energizing and bringing all kinds of brightness and vitality into your being and beyond. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the deliciousness of that sensation and bring yourselves present right here, right now. Welcome, welcome. So today's topic is pause, and we get so caught up in the activities of our lives and the demands of of circumstance that we often neglect the opportunity or don't even recognize the opportunity, let alone take advantage of it, to step back and evaluate and just pause, to pause the motion and look at, is this the direction I want to be going in? And where this comes from is that I had been really feeling like I was running to keep up, like the hamster on the hamster wheel. And we've been talking about this for the past week pretty much, what how we can view life as a sacred pilgrimage and how life is happening for us rather than to us. And when we give ourselves the gift of pause, of a moment periodically to step back and acknowledge what, like, to kind of take a reckoning of what's working, what's not working in our lives, to at least slow the frenzy of our activity that often we end up performing in a very disconnected way. We have the opportunity then to reconnect, to re-engage, to find a way of presencing ourselves to the the opportunities and the magic and the possibilities of our lives. Good morning, Irma and Dido. Welcome, welcome. We're talking about pause and the power of pause and how impactful it can be for creating redirection or possibility that might otherwise have uh, gone by without notice, opportunity that may have gone by without notice because we're so caught up in what we're doing. And so this moment of pause, I can, uh, if we take that opportunity to presence ourselves, to remember ourselves. And when we say remember, it's a wonderful word if we sort of dissect it a little. Remembering, so re-putting back together, or reassembling. And when we remember ourselves, we get to presence ourselves in the course of our lives. And when we do that, we get to check in and see what kinds of course corrections can we make for ourselves? And they can be really small course corrections that can have radical impact. Uh, just the simplest moment that we take can open up new vistas where we can entertain new possibilities, new choices. And I think that there's such magic in capturing these moments, or awakening to these moments where we can use our inspired creativity to choose new pathways, new choices. You know, like in the momentum of an action, the momentum carries that action in, and oftentimes momentum will carry us into a direction that isn't particularly where we want to go, but we go that way because that's the momentum. And when we take the moment to pause, particularly when we're not in our joy or in our inspiration, if we can take a moment to pause, then maybe we can course correct, even just a degree, for instance. And sometimes we can make major course corrections. So I'm still reeling in this out of the box entertainment I created for myself, where, and I mean entertainment in, I was willing to entertain a possibility, that kind of entertainment, where I was looking at, well, what would be an ideal lifestyle for me? What would give me the space I need? What would give me the rest I need? And by asking these questions and allowing myself not to live in the box of the way that things exist, I was able to start shaping a possibility that is going to be much more life affirming for myself in terms of my schedule. Like, really outrageous. I'm still amazed at how outrageous it was for me to even conceive for myself of a schedule where I would have 1 month off and 3 months on, just to conceive of it without knowing how it could happen. But this happened out of a pause, out of taking a pause and saying, well, what's working, what's not working? And being willing to engage with those questions, and what might work with those questions without preconception. And if we can suspend our preconceptions of how something's going to work, then we have the capacity to start generating new ideas that when there's alignment, when we're clicking into something that is moving from inspiration, which we can access oftentimes through this moment of pause, um, then the universe conspires to support us. You know, it's the same thing with mission and purpose. When we have a vision and we step into it, providence moves. So it's really quite remarkable how we truly are creators. And what we tend to do is we tend to limit the scope of what we're imagining into being, because we're accepting these limitations that in many cases are self-imposed. And um, perhaps, so I'm thinking of this wonderful story about this incredible girl. I don't know, and her amazing family. I don't know what her name is or what their name is. And she had no legs. And I believe she was abandoned as an infant um, by her parents, and she was adopted by this family who raised her with no limits. And this woman became a gymnast with no legs. She became a super performing gymnast, competition gymnast. And it just, that story, I saw videos of her. It was remarkable, remarkable. And she is completely 100% unstoppable. And most of us would, in reflecting on such a situation, would never imagine the capacity that this human being had, and that was nurtured by her family, that had a vision for her as whole and complete and miraculous. And I when I think about the limitations that I place on myself, um, I'm really appalled in remembering the story of this remarkable, remarkable young woman and her family. And her family brought her into a situation where was she was enculturated to no limitations, whereas so many of us are enculturated to limitation after limitation. And the point of this is to really recognize the power of our beliefs and our ability to think outside the boxes, whether they were initially self imposed or whether we just adopted them consciously or otherwise. When we allow ourselves to imagine outside those boxes, miracles are possible, miracle after miracle after miracle. And I find it so inspiring and expansive to be thinking about these things from the place of pause. And ideally, if we're going to utilize this pause idea to its greatest capacity, what we what we want to, or what we are best utilizing that pause for, is a place of presence and connection inside to the highest vision that isn't bounded by external circumstance. I mean, if you most people, I believe, would have seen this child and felt pity and treated her as a cripple, and instead she has become a beacon and a peak performer. And it's I'm kind of awed that such a thing is possible, and to be able to witness that by watching the videos and such, to be able to witness this human being who accepted no limits. And the pause that I'm talking about is one that I could hope we would take advantage of when we're kind of barreling at full speed down a path that isn't isn't serving our highest expression, and to just step back and stop the momentum of it, and then reevaluate as to whether to re-engage or to redirect. Because we all have that capacity, even though it doesn't seem like it. In any moment, we can create radical transformative change in any given moment. We live in life as if it's linear, as if it's progressive, one step in front of the other. And the truth is, it's not necessarily like that. It's not always going in this linear fashion. There are disruptive moments, and we've experienced them through tragedy, most frequently the disruptive moments, but we can also experience disruptive moments out of inspiration, or revelation, or enlightenment, or there are all kinds of consciousness type moments too that are radically transformational, radically disruptive in terms of the momentum. And I'm thinking that we have the capacity to engineer some of these moments by taking a pause. Good morning, Maria. Welcome. So glad to have you here. We're really talking about pause as a way to uh, create disruptive change or possibility. And in a moment of pause, what if we were to allow ourselves to imagine beyond the limits of our circumstance, to come up with something that is nonlinear, that is creative, that is stepping outside the throes of our routine and our routine thinking about things. In my situation, as much as I love so much, as much as I love all the things that I'm doing and the connections that I have in my life, I was feeling somewhat, I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling kind of caught in this momentum of something that I I didn't feel freedom within. And that recognition, that pause, that where I allowed myself to step back without it becoming an emergency. I allowed myself to step back and say, wow, I'm really feeling like I need a break. What would that look like? And how can I create my life where I receive the necessary break that I am looking for? And I've tried to do that by modifying my day-to-day schedule, and that wasn't as effective. I mean, it helped, but it wasn't as effective to be able to give me the space that I really was yearning for. And so that led me to dig a little deeper, to say, well, what would be ideal if I just gave up the idea of how, or could I afford it, or how could I make it work? If I gave up that idea, then what would be, if I could make it up any way I wanted? What would it what would it look like? What could it look like? And when we start having those conversations, the conversation in that pause that goes, if I could have it any way I wanted, if I could make it up any way I wanted it to be, what would it look like? And the thing is that so many of us are so entrenched in our patterns that we can't even allow ourselves to entertain the possibility of what would it look like if I could make it up any way I wanted. We're so deeply conditioned to believe that things have to be the way they are. And then if you allow yourself to entertain an outrageous possibility, that possibility can start gaining some momentum of its own, and can become a more expansive opening for you to to generate the impossible, generate the unimaginable, or what was previously imagined to be impossible or unimaginable. So there's a sense of vitality and life available to us as we start thinking about, well, what would it be like if I could make it up the way I wanted? And then look at, well, how might that happen? What might be possible? What, you know, the conviction, the clarity around making these leaps of imagination that can then start moving into a leap of faith that is very often corroborated, collaborated with, supported by the universe and circumstances that present themselves. So um, I think that this pause is an important piece of manifesting. And what are we looking to do but create a life that is enriching for ourselves and for others, that is fulfilling, that we have a sense of meaning and purpose, and for me anyway, a deep sense of wonder and awe and magic. And when we allow ourselves to put on our wings, it's amazing how high we can fly. And maybe the first step in that direction is this gift of pause, the gift of giving ourselves the time and the grace to stand back and say, what would I, how would I make it up if I could make it up the way that I dream of? And what would be different? And you know, this movement toward the life of our dreams is an most often is an incremental journey. Because what if I stepped out of the life that I live in right now and stepped immediately into the life of my dreams? I might be able to acclimate immediately and just embrace it and be ecstatic. However, I think that for most of us, it's the transition that allows us to evolve into who we get to be in the life of our dreams as well. So if our thoughts and dreams manifested instantaneously, we might be in for really a rude awakening, because we might not be in a place to fully receive it. I don't know about you, but I noticed that in my journey, moving into giving myself permission to have the life of my dreams, my vision has evolved over time. As I get to grow into it, the vision itself changes, it expands, it evolves, and it matures. And giving myself the time to mature into it. You know, it's like people that are catapulted, for instance, someone who might be discovered as a talent and then are catapulted automatically into this world that is an entirely different world without having the opportunity to grow into it and acclimate to it. We all need different amounts of time to acclimate, but the opportunity to envision your dream, move forward into your dream, um, with some opportunity to acclimate, is a really really important thing. It's like if you're diving, if you're going deep into the ocean, you don't want to come up too fast, because your lungs would explode with the oxygen that was in them, right? The compressed oxygen. So you come up from deep depths slowly, slowly, so that you can normalize, so that your the oxygen in your blood can normalize. And then when you're up at the surface, then you can breathe okay without getting the bends, so to speak. And I think that this happens with change in our lives. If it happened in a very rapid way, it can be cataclysmic. It can be more disruptive than positive potentially. And I'm not saying slow the roll. I'm just saying that we all have different speeds at which we process things and move into these phases of our lives, and move into the expression of our dreams. So it's okay if you don't have if you have a dream and you're in pause and you're thinking, well, what would it look like if I could create it any way I want, then we get to be more vividly imagining and experiencing that vision, and then move forward uh, into the expression of that on whatever timeline we each uh, require. The thing is that we often think, but I want it now. I want it all. I want it now. And um, I think that there's grace in the fact that we don't necessarily get it all here all at once. And there are evolutions in the path from here to there that are essential, not only for our acclimation, but also for our maturation and our evolution to be working through the different components and the different challenges that may arise. And different people have different rates of movement and transition and change that work for them. And the truth is that our pace is different in different circumstances, certainly. So um, Maria says, well said, sister. We are merely a, um, a something in this web of life in this life may forget that we all live and breathe the earth in it together. I love all your emojis there. I'm not sure what they all are, but I love the sentiment. We are all in it together. Oh, string. Okay, thank you. We are merely a string in this life web, and may forget that we all live and breathe the earth in it together. That's beautiful, Maria. Poetry, emoji poetry. Yeah, so we are all living this life here together, and we have different rates of change that work for us. And I think it's such an amazing thing. I think as we exercise our imagination and our desire and our vision, what we're doing is we're elevating the field globally. We all have an impact, and we're elevating the capacity of the field for that same kind of vision and imagination and possibility. And so as we expand ourselves, consequently, we are expanding the universe, the world, because we're all part of it, and we are all connected. So if I allow myself to dream, maybe that and implement my dreams, then maybe that's something that you will then allow for yourself. So Irma says, how would it look for me to accept and not compare, or think, where should I be at this point? So the should word is something that so many of us fall prey to, Irma. You're not alone in that. We all should on ourselves from time to time, at least. And there is no should. Maybe if you want to take a should, the best one is, I should be right where I am right now because I am here and it is perfect. And so I wonder if that is a support in accepting. Is like, if I go under the premise, and this is something we spoke about yesterday, life is not happening to me, it's happening for me and through me. And if life is happening for me and through me, then it is perfect. If I allow that it is all perfect, even though I may feel absolutely miserable in this moment, and I can't imagine how this could possibly be for me. If I imagine that where I am right here, right now, is where I should, and that's with air quotes, be, if that I'm in exactly the right place to be moving through and experiencing and expressing my life, then that allows me greater acceptance of this moment, which hopefully enables me to not be resisting it as deeply, and to allow myself to move into and through whatever it is that's arising. So good. Irma says, where I am is perfect. It gives me some ease. Yes. And that's really, whenever it comes to should, it's denying the perfection of our lives. So if we just allow ourselves to be where we are and know that it's perfect, even though we don't understand it or we don't know why, if we know that it's perfect, that can give us greater ease. That can allow us to be more present without resistance. It can allow us to not make ourselves wrong, to not beat ourselves up, to not do violence to ourselves the way that we so often do by saying, well, that person and that person and that person, well, they're in their perfect life and we're in our perfect life, and we all have our different purposes and our own different paths. And really, I can say that through the many years when I was going through deep emotional distress, I really had no clue why it was perfect or how it was perfect. And there were moments when I was able to know that it was, and that helped me get through. And now in retrospect, I see how rich my life has become due to all of those challenges, and how much more I'm able to contribute to others out of the wisdom grown from that experience, as excruciatingly painful as it was. And just having come through it, is enrichment in and of itself. So yes, this moment where I am is perfect, even though I may not understand it. And if we stand in that place, we are inviting grace and magic and wonder, because there's a flow as we allow the perfection, even in our resistance. There's perfection in that too, in all of it. And it feels like that's a really good note to end on for a Friday, to take you into the weekend with the presence to your own, the perfection of your life. And as you can continue to presence yourself to that, who knows what kind of magic will appear on your path forward. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up and say, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live every weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And please check out the Enlightened World Network Facebook page for all kinds of wonderful, wonderful programming over the weekend and every day. And I just want to say how grateful I am to you for sharing in these conversations and this journey and um, this exploration of what it is to be here together on this planet. So lots and lots of love, and I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Until next time.